All
Can you
right.
hear me?
I can. How you doing, Kristi?
Yay! I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for making some time to be on my show. It's good to have a Hall of Famer on the show.
Oh,
Um,
no problem.
Let me start out by saying congratulations on your induction into the Indiana Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame. That's awesome. Well deserved, Kristi. And it's
Thank you.
so cool to get a chance to talk to you today. Let's start out by, was that always the goal? Was to get to the Indiana Broadcast Hall of Fame when you started out at Ben Davis?
That wasn't even a goal last week.
No?
No, it was never a goal. I never ever thought that it would even be attainable. I mean, I never even thought about it.
Right.
I just do what I love, and to be honored for it is just, icing on the cake, so to speak.
Well, and see, we know each other from Chooch being part of the Bob and Tom band, and I was
Sure.
just curious, with you being part of the show, did you have family in the business that kind of got you started and interested in this career field?
Not really. I mean, I think the first time I was ever exposed to radio when I was very young, like 12, 10,
Yeah.
12 years old. Our neighbors across the street in the housing development we lived in, he was the morning show guy at the old WIFE AM 1310, which at that time was like the number one station in Indy. It was like a big hit radio station, and the morning show guy was wacky, and he, did these phone call bits and took me down to the radio station because he had kids my age. He had 3 kids and took all 5 of us down because my sister and I went.
Right.
And I got to see the window on the world because back then it was on Meridian Street. WIFE was the station. And so he got to see the window on the world, and he showed us the studio, and I thought it was cool, but to me it was just okay. He gave me
Yeah.
free 45s. I know a few kids don't know what a 45 is, but back in the old days those were records. That's how I listened to my music. And that was the highlight for me, was I got free records from him. But I think that was my earliest exposure. But then at Ben Davis, I just took a radio class on a whim because a friend of mine told me it was an easy credit. It's an easy
Yeah.
A, and I'm like all about that. So that's how it started.
Do you remember your first shifts at Ben Davis's station? I can recall my first ones at Carmel at WHG. Probably don't want to hear those air checks again.
I don't know that there are air checks. I'm sure there are. We actually ran NPR. That was kind of our thing. And they didn't start doing radio shows. I think I did a Friday or a Saturday afternoon, maybe for a couple hours. I also ran the football games back at the station. So I did a lot of news back then because I did a noon show called Wayne Community Happenings. Oh yes, from 12 to 12:15. And I would talk about what's coming up in Wayne Township. So Ben Davis High School and everything. And
Yeah.
so it was more of a journalistic experience rather than a DJ experience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that kind of came later. I mean, we did do air shifts like that, but not like they do now. I mean, I think I did 2 hours a week or something. That came after my first job. I'll never forget. I was working at WNON in Lebanon, a small little radio station up in Lebanon, Indiana. I used to call it No Radio. And even there, I ran like Indians games and the religious programming on Sunday morning. And then there was the occasional 2 or 3 hours when I got to DJ. And I remember the most rock and roll song we had was like Billy Joel or something. So pathetic.
There you go. How did I know that, because Bob and Tom were originally, it was just those two, right? How did you eventually get worked into their format at Q95?
Well, way back then, I was working weekends at the radio station, and I would work Sunday night into Monday morning. So Bob and Tom would come in after me.
Okay.
And I just kind of started hanging around a little bit because they go, "Oh, hey, Kristi, what'd you do this weekend?" Or, you just talk. And they played music back then too, but those were way back in the early days. But we just kind of always had this rapport, if you will. And years later, a couple years, 3 years later, I had gone off to Albuquerque and followed a guy, and that wasn't working out. And I got a phone call, and they were saying, we'd really like to add a female news person. Have you ever done news before? And I said, oh yeah, that's how I started, actually.
Right.
And would you be interested? And we feel like we have a chemical, we had a chemistry together. And
Sure.
so I went in, I interviewed with Marty Bender, and I don't even think I went in. I think we did this all over the phone. It wasn't even, because we didn't have Zoom back then. It was all over the phone. And I was living in Albuquerque. And I know I didn't fly in. And they hired me. And God, here I am.
Well, and I've done a couple of morning shows where, is there a certain limitation to people within a show? Like you can only have so many microphones open unless you're just like stepping on each other. Is there a certain limit to how many people you can have on a show?
Apparently not. We keep adding people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people with microphones now, so, and back in the early days when Bob and Tom were on, I would only come into the studio when I had a newscast. Like it was 20 after the hour and 10 till the hour. So, and I got 2 minutes. So it was like a structured 2 minutes with sound bites. Anybody who's been in the business, sound bites are the little clips that you hear when, people are going, oh, and here's John Bon Jovi talking about his latest tour. And then John would speak. That's called a sound bite.
Right.
And so I wasn't in there all the time. We didn't start that format, if you will, with all of us in with Chick. Even Chick did that. Chick would rotate in until we went into syndication pretty much. And then that's when they told me, oh, by the way, you're going to be sitting in there all the time. And I was like, what?
Oh, man. Well, one of the best classes I took at UIndy was the programming class with Drew Carey. And he brought in a ratings book from, I think, 1984, 1985. And Bob and Tom had a 33 share from what I can recall in his class, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's a third of the city tuned in to, I mean, is that pressure, especially early on before syndication, knowing that many people are listening to you every morning?
This is gonna sound crazy to you, but I never thought about that. Never have I ever looked at a ratings book. Never have I thought about, I just don't think that way. I'm not a programmer. I'm not in advertising, so I don't have to worry about the sales. I just go in and enjoy laughing and having a good time. And that sounds horrible, but it's true. And I've been blessed with a job that allows me to do that. But yeah, those days of, boy, 33 shares, those are way gone. Sadly, way gone.
And it still is an ongoing morning show. Tell me, what does a typical day look like for you from start to finish? Because it's an early day, and then you have to wrap up stuff even after the show is over, I would imagine too.
Boy, I'm gonna break down the fourth wall here. I usually get in there around 5:15, 5:30. And I record 2 entertainment newscast and a regular newscast for our 24/7 feed. So that usually takes me about 15 minutes. And then Tom hands me the news that we're going to read that day. And I proofread it. Yeah, I'm a professional, Jimmy. Can you tell? I sort of proofread it. And then at 6 o'clock, I walk into the studio and we sit there and make magic for 4 hours.
That's right.
And at 10:05, I close my computer and waltz out the door. Except on Wednesdays, we do have a staff meeting. But no, it's hard to describe to people, and everyone, people, even my loved ones, don't understand when I say, hey, I had a tough day at work today. They're like, yeah, you sit on your butt and you talk. How hard is it? But Jimmy, it's a mental game. I mean, you're constantly worried about what you're going to say next. Yeah. You're worried about saying the wrong thing now, because God knows that's a thing. How you interact with your teammates. If somebody's having a bad day, how do you deal with that? If you're having a bad day, how do you deal with that? Mm-hmm. And so it's not a physical exhaustion. Like if I were obviously on an assembly line somewhere, and I'm not even trying to portray that as the same, but it is a mental exhaustion. So I literally get in my car at 10:05 and I don't turn the radio on. I drive home in complete silence. And I think that's kind of my bridge from the radio talk to, I just don't want to have anyone talking to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
I talked to Mark Patrick, who would do, the Bob and Tom show, and then Wish TV. I mean, he was even more of a stacked schedule with the demands of his job. I mean, this career path for me has taught me time management and dealing with different personalities. I would imagine it's the same for you with all the demands and all the people that you've met throughout the show.
Well, just like today, like I left work at 10:05. I had an appointment at 11. I got done at 11:45. I just walked in the door. Here we are talking at 12:15. It started. I have a meeting downtown at the zoo. I'm on the board at the zoo, so I'm down there a lot. I have a meeting at the board at the zoo at 2. I mean, so it's not like my day ends at 10:05. I'm, like you, time management is really important, especially back in the older days when I was doing 2 or 3 jobs, and I worked for the Pacers for a while, and I did, so sleep is what I miss the most.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do this job, especially a morning show, you really learn that sleep is a luxury, not a necessity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I want to ask you this question, because I know with Bob and his LA hat, if he wears that out in public, that kind of puts a target on him where people notice him. Do you have a hard time remaining anonymous when you want to out in public?
Not really. No. Occasionally you'll get a, that's Kristi Lee. You hear that, but no, I don't have that kind of celebrity, and I'm glad. I'm not complaining. I don't mind it, but I don't have any, I've never had that problem.
Is it a little strange too that like sometimes you'll have fans come up to you and they know you better than you know them? I mean, was there ever a stalker situation or anything like that? I'm asking for, when you're in the public eye, you get people that get attached to you.
I never had a stalker per se, but I did have an incident at my other job one time where someone got a little too close and made me a little uncomfortable, but that was in a workplace situation. This wasn't at the radio station. This was another place I worked. But no, I've never had, knock on wood. I'm too old to be stalked now. God, nobody's, but no, I've never had that.
Well, something that Bob just said, but I can remember interviewing him in college, is that you never really know who's listening, and it's always cool to get feedback from fans. And you've done a lot, including the X Games back in the day for ESPN. Is there anything that you still want to do in your career at this point?
Retire.
I was going to ask you, how much longer do you want to do this show?
Oh no, I'll do this for as long as whatever, until Tom still got a 7 or 8-year-old, we got some legs on us. No, I think right now my main focus, not only on my job, but is giving back to the community. I like to do a lot of volunteer work. I'm very involved in, obviously I just mentioned the zoo, and I'm on another couple boards, and I really enjoy doing that.
Okay.
I'm also trying to help a little bit with the high school radio stations, because obviously that's becoming a dying art, and which is sad for me. So because I got my start there, the before mentioned Drew Carey has roped me into helping with that as well. So I hope to do a little bit more of encouraging you young people to do this as a career. Now, obviously, broadcast radio may look a little differently when you're my age, obviously, but there's still a lot to be done and a lot of opportunities.
How do you see radio changing? It's changed a lot just in the last couple of years, but over the next couple of decades, where do you see it going?
Well, I think there's always going to be radio. Now, you may not get radio on a radio like that we know of, but there will be the need for people to connect, and this is a wonderful way to connect to people. And I hope this medium never goes away. I think it's going to be a lot more varied. You're just like podcasting. You have a lot more choices now. And I think radio will be the exact same. You're going to have a lot more choices. Internet radio stations pop up all the time. The car situation will affect the radio situation, depending on how those two match up, because a lot of radio listening obviously is on your car radio or on your at home, like the Alexas, the Google, whatever Google's thing is called. A lot of that, the personal, whatever they call that. What do they call those things, Jimmy?
The
AI assistant or whatever.
right. Yeah.
That's where almost, and your computer, that's where people are listening. So I don't think it'll go away. I think it'll just emerge as a more accessible, actually, medium rather than just being in your car or because right now I can listen to a radio station in Hawaii if I want, just by going on my computer. We didn't have that when I was your age. We didn't have that opportunity. And I think that's just going to continue to grow and be a lot more diverse and a lot more fun. It's going to be fun.
Are you still doing Kristi Lee uninterrupted episodes at this point?
I am not. The older episodes, all the episodes are still available. KristiLeeNews.com if you'd like to check them out. I think they're still on Apple too. I think I still pay for them to be on Apple. But it was very, as you know, time consuming, and it was becoming very stressful for me. And I'm at a time in my life where I need to lessen the stress level rather than heighten it. So yeah, my podcasting days are over, but I really enjoyed it while it lasted.
Awesome. Folks, to hear this again, you can check out my website, jbkonair.com, or get the podcast anywhere by searching JBKONAIR. Until next time, have a great day and a better tomorrow.